what about, share? You talk about being inspiring, which is easy to say and so much harder to do. Have you seen people who've managed to share their vision in a very effective way with other people? Because especially if you're trying to do something different, it's sometimes hard to communicate what you're doing to people.
Do you want to take that one?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think who's the most visionary founder. I mean, it's a really good example, but I think it takes it for... I'm trying to think of different examples now. The companies we've perhaps seen fail is where they've had to educate their customer. So that's just a nightmare. So hence why I said, coming back to sort of having easy concepts which everyone can understand, that certainly helps you tremendously. And then the vision, I think that comes very much down, from my perspective, is, okay, if you're able to listen to the customer, so that, being able to step outside of your own shoes and into the customer's thought of mind. And I suppose, but the real vision for me comes to the team. So I always think if you are able to bring the best possible people on board in your company, you stand so much more chance of succeeding. And it's then really just sharing your vision, your passion, and bringing in the right talent.
So the customer focus, and then also making sure you've got the right people in the team, because you however much of a finisher you are, you can't do everything yourself.
And then I suppose the third element is, but I think we'll come on to that, is the raising investment. So that's very much sharing your vision with potential investors. Which
also
is another
easy,
whole,
as we know.
Challenge.
So tell us, guys, about where you've seen it go wrong. What is it that can trip a company up? Companies you've seen with great vision, great ambition. What is it that goes wrong?
There's one company comes to mind in particular, which I cannot name for legal reasons. So that's how wrong that went. There was a couple of instances. That company had a number of different co-founders, and while that's excellent and it's great to have in play, their overall visions and objectives were completely unaligned. So they had this idea which they thought was great, and as the business was building more trajectory, they all wanted to go sort of separate ways, and they all had different ideas about the next steps to take. And there was no framework in place in instances where things go belly up to actually say, okay, let's sit around a table and discuss this like adults. It was kind of, we signed up to this limited company 5 years ago. It's a great idea at the time, and we're going to make millions of pounds off it, but actually, what's plan B when things go wrong or life gets in the way and one of the co-founders has a child and has to relocate? So that's one instance, is sort of putting a framework in place early on to sort of negate the downside.
Being prepared for when things go wrong.
When things fall apart between ownership. And then also diversification on your revenue stream. I've seen businesses really reliant on 2 or 3 really big government contracts, or relying on one, Carillion being an example. You're relying on a specific revenue stream from one particular company, and when that goes pop, you're left holding a baby. So it's really how well diversified are you from a revenue perspective. I think that's key.
Yeah, and I would completely echo that sentiment, being it comes down to the team. I think 99% of the times when we've seen companies fail, it's the founders who actually fall out. It's not necessarily they can't build the product or they can't sell the product. And again, that could be multiple different reasons, not necessarily all negative. As Thomas said, you could have different vision. In fact, I know one company where the founders, they were each other's best men at each other's weddings. They were school friends into the adulthood, and it got to a certain point, growing the company, they hated each other so much. Once they set up a New York branch and a London branch, so they had to be in different geographical areas to one another. And it's because I think, as I said, you're so passionate about your own business and growing it, and your idea is the right idea, and so it can even come at a later stage, that vision sort of separating.
And if you've got the stress, as we've talked about, that inevitably happens, that puts a lot of stress on friendships and relationships as well.